I think people will say things differently because of the way in which they relate to the things that God's showing them. And that's related through personal experience and past and history. And therefore, God will share things with different people in different ways, but it has the same principles behind it because we're all different. And therefore, God is multifaceted and multicolored. So he's not just going to say things in one boring way. He can say it lots of different ways. That being said, we're all on a journey, and therefore we're interpreting what he says through the filters of our mindsets and belief systems, and our minds are being renewed, deconstructed, changed over a period of time. Therefore, the things that God spoke to me in 2011, I wouldn't interpret them the same way as I interpret them now. Even though he did it, what he said is what he said, my interpretation of what he said has changed because he has renewed my mind during that period, that now some of the things that I did believe, I no longer believe. So I don't frame what he said according to my beliefs. And everyone does that. You know, essentially, we're all, in a sense, framing what we have experienced in God through belief systems that then make sense of it. Well, we've got to get to the point where we do not lean to our own understanding and therefore use those belief systems to affirm what we already believe about God, but we allow the experiences of cognitive dissonance where we have an encounter which doesn't align up with our beliefs. Do we go back to use our beliefs as the framework for that, or do we allow the experience to change our beliefs? And we are being transformed by the renewing of our minds. So we must expect that we will have changes in the way we feel and think over time. And therefore, some people are sharing things from their present perspective, and that's where they are on their journey. Now, the key is not to fall out and disagree over that, but just realize that we're all on a journey, and it's okay to have different views in relation to the journey we're on. And so, 2011, when we started blogging my teaching, some of that, I would definitely not agree with some of the things I taught in 2011. And even on the Engaging God program, there are things which were shared when I first began that I would frame differently today. I'm not going to change it because everyone's on their own journey and everyone will relate to that the way they do. But definitely, we are probably going to put out some booklets from some of the things that we've done, and we're having to then frame some of those differently now because actually I believe different things, because my relationship with God has taken me into beliefs of a more love persona for God, rather than some of what I was brought up with, which was the evangelical angry God that you need to appease and keep on side by behaving. And again, that's a conditional sense. Well, God will love me if I behave, and if I don't, well, then I need to look out because there may be some negative things coming towards me. That's not what God is and who he is, but that's how I used to think he was. Now, there are some people who probably have experiences of God which have taken them beyond my experiences, and therefore I wouldn't necessarily understand what they're saying at this point in time, but I may well in the future. And I may have had experiences that are beyond what other people have had, which have shaped my understanding, which they haven't had yet. And so they may disagree with some of the things I've experienced, but that's okay. And to be expected, in that we're all on journeys coming from different places towards a similar destination, which is sonship in relation to our Father. So if someone was brought up in a charismatic church all their lives, they wouldn't probably have some of the baggage that I brought with the Brethren Church and other churches, but they will have their own charismatic baggage. And some of that is based in tradition, even if it's a very young tradition, which perhaps may need changing. So depending on what our streams that we've been brought up with, they will have affected what we believe, and they have the greatest influence over what we understand about God and our relationship with him. And he's in the process of deconstructing it away from any belief system into a relationship which is not based on some other theological position. And therefore I can understand why there are differences.